What's going on YouTube? Cyrus here coming at you with another Final Fantasy XIV review. And today I'm doing my review of Endwalker. Alright, so today is going to be my review of Endwalker, and I have to say right on the outset, this is going to be a very spoiler-inclusive review. So if you have not finished the main story of Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, I recommend maybe putting this one in the watch later list and coming back after you finished it, because I'm going to be spoiling everything. I'm going to be talking about all the major plot points, all the major character pieces and developments and interactions, so this is probably not going to be the video to check out until you finish that main story quest. So this is your warning now to bounce right now if you haven't finished the main story. Alright, also, right at the onset, if you could like this video, that would be fantastic. If you could subscribe to the channel, get notified of the upcoming videos, that would be huge. It helps the channel so much. I really would appreciate it. Alright, those things out of the way, I want to start off by saying this expansion is fantastic. It blew me away. I really like this expansion, and what I'm going to be doing is going through my pros and cons list just like I did with all my other reviews up till now. So I'm going to mention all the things that I liked and the few things that I maybe didn't like so much, but this expansion in particular was pretty overwhelmingly in the positive for me. So let's just get straight right into it. Alright, the first thing that I'm going to say about the expansion is the music was a huge step up from Shadowbringers for me personally. Up until this point, I thought the best music in the game was probably the Stormblood expansion, led by songs like Songs of Salt and Suffering and others. I thought it was a bit of a letdown coming into Shadowbringers. There are a few tracks that I didn't really care for, and particularly the battle music that I wasn't a fan of at all. And then coming into Endwalker, big step up for the music. I thought the overall themes were great. There were a number of vocalized tracks that I thought were all pretty good. A lot of the background music for almost every single zone is something that's great. There's a bunch of fantastic remixes. There's great battle music. There's some really cool battle music in different zones as well. In particular, the moon zone where you go down into the rabbit city there. The battle music down there is just awesome. It's this old like 16-bit feel for the music, and it's just great. Overall, I would definitely say the music was definitely a success in setting the mood, in setting the aesthetic, and a thumbs up for that. I really enjoyed the music. All right, that brings me to my first con. I really didn't like the trailer. It's playing right behind me right now, and I don't know what most people thought of the trailer, but my goodness, it reveals so many major story points. I actually didn't watch the review on purpose until after I had finished my 24-hour stream that I did over on Twitch. So I was well into the game. I had already gone to the moon. I had already defeated Anima. I had already defeated Zodiark. And like by the time I had gotten to all that stuff, I finished the stream. I was dead tired after 24 hours being live. But I went back and I was like, all right, you know what? I haven't watched the trailer yet. I think now's going to be a good time to watch it. And as I watched it, I was shocked at how much of what I had just played was in the trailer. I was like, if I had watched this first, like there would have been so many major things spoiled for me. And I don't know what most people's opinions are of the trailers. I thought they've been really good up until now, but way too many story beats were in this trailer for me, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. And then there were a couple small little uncanny valley for me things with some of the CGI in the trailer as well. I thought Xenos actually kind of hit that uncanny valley a little bit, and a few other things I just didn't love. Granted, it's high budget, high action. There were some really cool things in it, but overall, I just don't like there being that much of the story of the expansion tied directly into the trailer. All right. The next thing that I really like as far as the aesthetic goes is I like that there's more new costumes. I thought it's cool that Alphinaud gets a new costume and he's showing off the Sage class. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a good way to go about doing it. I like that Alice also gets a new costume. She's still a red mage. She's got like the red garments going on. I thought that was pretty cool. I really like that Xenos gets this really cool new aesthetic to him because he is the Reaper job and he's really showing off the Reaper thing, and he gets this like possessed thing too, where he gets like all these red and fiery and cool things added to his aesthetic as well. And so I thought that was pretty cool. I thought some of the new costumes that they did add were pretty cool. As far as aesthetic goes too, I also really liked how there was that Hindu Indian theme there in Rads at, what was it called? In Rads at Han. And one of the other zones there, Thaviar or some Thaver or whatever that zone was called. I like that Indian aesthetic. I like the color choices. I like how much they make it feel in Indian and Hindu. It's really cool, especially after seeing what they did with Stormblood and getting that real good Far East feel in the city of Kugane and the surrounding zones. Really like feel the Chinese, the Japanese influence in the architecture and the aesthetic. It was cool to see them take the Indian Hindu aesthetic and really apply that to Stormblood. I thought that was pretty cool overall. Okay. My cons as far as the aesthetic goes is, why does Estinian get nothing but a hair tie? I mean, he is one of the coolest characters for sure, and I say it a little half joking too, because I get that was part of the shtick in that he just gets a hair tie. It actually was kind of a funny thing, but I would have liked to see him go into battle wearing the helmet at some point. The helmet from Heaven's Ward is super cool. It doesn't show his face, it like covers his eyes, and I kept thinking in the last, like some of the last bosses or some of the raids where he's involved or the dungeons where he's involved, it would have been really cool if he had put the helmet on for like serious time. Small little thing, but I think it would have been really cool. And then the other thing is, I wasn't a huge fan of the fact that Thancred, Ishtola, and Urianger, all three got really no new costume at all, as well as Grahara. I was kind of hoping he would get a little something too, but they all pretty much kept the exact same aesthetic through the entire expansion, and I would have liked to see just a tiny bit more, but again, that's an incredibly small gripe of mine. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is the story. All right. There are a lot of things to go over on the story. Overall, I loved the story, and I really want to point out a few things about the story that I really liked. There's a scene at the beginning where you're at the hotel with a bunch of the characters, and you're like sitting outside having dinner, and the characters are interacting with the Warrior of Light. And something that I've complained about in the past with Final Fantasy XIV in general is I felt like I was a side character a little bit in the main story, and the main story was going on around me. And this expansion really fixed that for me. I felt like the entire expansion, the Scions and the Warrior of Light, really became a cohesive unit more than before, by quite a margin. I really felt like there was character development going back and forth with the Warrior of Light and each one of the Scions, and there's a weightiness that happens with the story and a weightiness that happens with the character interactions that is just, in my opinion, a big step up from the previous expansion. I really like to see it. I really like that character involvement. A few other things about the story that were fantastic is I thought the entire section in Garlemald was probably the best story of the entire game, until some of the stuff at the very end that was really cool. But that character, Quintus, he's such a great character. That character Julius, another great character. And I think what the story nailed so perfectly in this game was that feeling of what Civil War is actually like for the people that are going through it. The people on the Empire side can't believe anything that's being said to them. There's this constant feeling of betrayal by your own country, and you feel that it's caused by the other side, and there's that pull that they can't trust anybody, they can't believe anybody. That woman, I can't remember her name, but the woman who dies with her sister in the ice because they think they're being manipulated by the Grand Company of Eorzea, and for good reason. I mean, if there was a civil war like this, if there was a war going on, you would trust your side. You would believe in what you've always believed in, and you would be fearful of the other side and feel like they're being manipulative, even if they're not. So I think they did a really good job there. I think you can really resonate with that Quintus character. I mean, the weight of what he's going through and the betrayal that he feels like by the 10th Legion to to leave him high and dry, and the resolution of him not wanting to sacrifice all of his soldiers, so he relieves them of duty, and then he feels like his honor, he has no way out, and so he kills himself, and it's super heavy, and it's important. It's an important story to tell too, and I just think it's handled incredibly well. And I also really like the scene with Alphinaud and Alice when they're taken prisoner, when they have the things clamped around their necks, and they're taken prisoner, and they're both sitting down. They're leaned up against like a metal crate thing, and I love how Alice moves closer and closer to Alphinaud, and there's this feeling of hopelessness that's just incredible. And when they talk about what these people are going through and why they're going through what they're going through, and how easily people can be influenced by their politics, who's around them, who's leading them. It's such a good scene. It was maybe my favorite scene in the entire game, actually, and I definitely wanted to talk about that one in specific. Okay. The one con that I have as far as the story goes is, why the heck are we doing time travel? Now, I will say they did a really good job with the Elpis zone and bringing some of that time travel stuff into the main story towards the very end of the expansion. But man, I definitely rolled my eyes big when I saw that we were doing time travel. I was like, no, we can't have jumped the shark. We were doing so well up until this point, and they brought it back for me. They won me back over. The story does stay solid the whole way through. It gets very emotional towards the end, but I did roll my eyes a bit when we started to get into time travel. All right, moving on to the quests section. I finally got some variants in quests. Now, I'm sure a ton of people hated the follow quests, where every so often a character is going to join you and follow you, and in most games follow quests are the absolute worst type of quests. But I actually think they did a pretty good job with it here. I liked walking around town with other people attached to me. It feels like Final Fantasy when I'm walking around with a couple other party members, when they're following me, when you get these extra dialogue options that open up and you can find out more about them, and there's this character building between the Warrior of Light and whoever's following alongside of them. And I actually kind of like those things. That's probably a divisive take, but I actually really like those things. Another thing I liked about the quests was the Thancred espionage mission is fantastic. It's like this Metal Gear Solid thing out in the snow, and it's exactly what I've been talking about in some of my previous reviews. I wanted quest variants, and I felt like I was finally getting some in this expansion. Man, I was over the moon when I saw this quest. I mean, I was so excited that there was something unique, something different, something that was fun as well. Just an overall huge plus for me. I really liked that. I also liked the character portraits in the Garlemald quest, where you're doing this sort of duty. You get like the little dialogue options, and you get the character portraits, and it was just like a cool thing to help with some of the immersion, help me get really into it. Overall, I thought the quests were pretty good. One of the things that I didn't really love is that a lot of the quest structure felt the exact same from some of the previous games, where you'd walk into a new quest hub, a new like city, and you just have to go talk to like 5 different people first, and what they say is completely meaningless, but it's just a matter of clicking on 5 different people to advance the next part of the quest. Wasn't a huge fan of that. My other con for the quests is the role quests were terrible again. I really liked the Samurai storyline quest from 50 to 60. I thought the Samurai quests weren't great from 60 to 70, but for me, the role quests in Shadowbringers were a bit of a negative, and then it's even worse in Endwalker. Another one of my fairly large cons for the expansion is that I did not like the role quests. I mean, I was wanting to just skip through them entirely because I thought it was completely forgettable. I thought it added nothing to the story, and I did them pretty late in the expansion, so there's so many other things that are so much more important in the story towards the end of the story, and if you throw those role quests in because you need some experience to maybe get to a next level, man, you're just trying to get through them as fast as possible so you can continue on with the main story quests. So overall, not a huge fan of the role quests. Okay, my next pro is some of the character interaction in this game is fantastic. One of the things that I complained about previously in my reviews was I didn't feel like there were enough dialogue options that gave me enough variance in what I was saying, and I wasn't getting differing reactions from the characters based on my dialogue choices. And I actually think that that was improved quite a bit in Endwalker. I felt like the different things that I could say were different enough in a lot of situations that I was getting different reactions from characters that I would get if I had selected other dialogue choices. So I'd wanted this for a while. I definitely felt like I got it in Endwalker, and I thought that was definitely a good thing. All right, another thing I want to say about the characters is I think Emmett Selk is the best character in the entire game. I loved him in Shadowbringers. He was my favorite villain up till now, and man, they take his character and make it even better. They really build on the Venat character, fabulous. Hythlodaeus, the relationship between those three characters and what they do with those three characters is maybe the highlight for characters of the entire expansion. I love Emmett Selk. I love that he looks so much like Viserys from Game of Thrones. He also has this like Bleach captain vibe going for him. And maybe it's because he's wearing like the black robes and stuff, but it's like you get this Shinigami Targaryen like hybrid thing going on. I know that's silly to say, and maybe that makes no sense to people, but I totally had that vibe through the whole expansion. He oozes cool. He's so interesting as a character. I love his motivations. I love the conflict that he has with the Warrior of Light and with the characters around him. And just overall, in my opinion, he was the best character. All right, another thing is I really thought that the character progression overall of all of the different Scions was very, very well done. Again, it feels like a traditional Final Fantasy game in that in most Final Fantasy games, you have like, 6 to 9 or so party members that you can interchange with to go through most of the game. And it finally feels like, to me at least, that the 7 Scions and the Warrior of Light are the cast like a traditional Final Fantasy game would be. I love going into the trusts with them. I think it's super cool, even if you don't use it super often. The fact that you can is really, really great. And another thing about the trusts, real quick, is the trust with Venat, Hythlodaeus, and Emmett Selk is maybe the best trust that's been in the game up till now, so definitely don't miss out on that one in particular. But yeah, I love the characters. I love how it feels like a traditional Final Fantasy party and group together. And I love going through the end of the story with those characters and having those major story beats be with those characters. And I felt like I wasn't the side character like I had been complaining about in the past. I felt like we were a party together. And man, I really, really liked it. I really liked the characters. Okay, my one con for the characters is I didn't love the Lopro Rits, or whatever they're called, the little bunny rabbit things. Man, it just didn't work for me. Didn't do anything for me. I thought it was silly. I thought it was kind of dumb. That was just kind of a miss for me overall. I didn't love that. Moving on to dungeons. I will say my big pro for the dungeons is that the trusts are much improved now. I really like fighting alongside the other Scions in the important story beats. I love doing a big raid at the very end of the story with the 7 other Scions. Man, that's like one of my favorite moments of the whole game. It feels like Final Fantasy, man. It feels like an end boss with the other characters and everybody's involved, and you're getting these extra like text dialogue pop-ups and stuff, and the characters are saying things when you're in battle, and I loved it. I loved it so much. Even if it's not the most effective way to go through the raids, I love that it's there. The one thing that I would change is I wouldn't give players the option to go in and choose whether they want to do the dungeons with adventurers or whether they want to use the story characters. And I like that the very, very end boss against the end singer, you can't go in with the story characters because it is more challenging to, and there's a bit of variance by using the adventurers because the Scion controlled characters in the Trust just don't make mistakes. They know how all of the dungeons work, so it's a bit easier, even if it's a bit slower. So I like that you are forced to use adventurers for some of the challenging parts, but I like that you can use the Scions for some of the big story parts. I kind of wish that choice was taken away from the user though, and you had to do one or the other, because I kind of like the idea of being forced to having to do a raid boss with the other Scions instead of being able to use adventurers. Kind of a small thing, but it was cool. It was cool. I love that both were there. I love the way that they did both. Overall, I thought it was really fun. Okay, I will say my one con about the dungeons overall is that for me, the structure of dungeons has stagnated a bit, and I think it would be really good to get a little variance. Every single dungeon, I believe, in the entire game, but certainly in Endwalker, is the exact same structure. It's a few trash pulls, boss 1, a few trash pulls, boss 2, a few trash pulls, final boss. And that's the same structure, and it's that structure for every single dungeon. I would like to see a little variance moving forward. I think it'd be really good to just mix it up a little bit. Okay, a couple little extra things to mention is, one, I thought the samurai job was maybe the most fun that it's been ever in Endwalker. What they do at level 88 and at level 90 in particular, I think are great. I love that you can use that level 88 the skill Meikyo Shusui, I think is what it's called, where you can use essentially your three skills in a row with no cooldowns, and you can use any of your skills. I love that you can save that up twice. It makes for super interesting rotations. It makes for super interesting theorizing on what the best opener is. It adds a lot to the class, and especially in the short fights, the non-boss fights, you just feel like you're doing cool things all the way through when you're fighting mobs, and I love that. I think it's really cool. Also, I really like the level 90 skill. I love that you use it twice. I love that the cone, the AoE, it's a cool skill. It's done really well. The balance of Samurai feels like your big moves do big damage now. Just the overall tuning to the class, I thought that was really fun. I really enjoyed it all the way through. All right, the final thing that I'm going to say that's negative about the game, and it's definitely the biggest thing and it has to be brought up, are the infrastructure problems. Everybody's faced them. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, but I would be remiss if I didn't include it in the review. The queuing was atrocious for the opening weekend. I mean, and it wasn't that the queues were super long, it was that you would get disconnected from the queue while you were in it, and if you couldn't re-queue fast enough, you would get sent to the back of the line. And it wasn't for not trying. I mean, I at one point I got kicked after I'd been waiting for like 2,000 people in the queue. I couldn't get back and I kept getting the 2002 error over and over and over. And then after 5 or 6 tries, when I got back into the queue, I was back at the back. And it happened again while I was waiting in the queue too. So it wound up taking me 5 hours just to get into the game, when if I just been able to wait in the queue once, it would have taken me about an hour and a half. So a huge blunder with the login queue being broken. It doesn't bother me that there are queues. Obviously, a lot of people want to get in and play the game, but the fact that you would disconnect from the queue and then not be able to get in was pretty bad. Overall, the infrastructure, once you got into the game, from my experience, was very solid, but getting to the game to begin with was definitely a challenge and definitely frustrating. All right. Those are my pros and cons for Endwalker, and overall, I do want to just say again that I think Endwalker is an overwhelming success for Final Fantasy XIV. It's definitely the direction that the game should be going. I really enjoyed it. I loved the story. I loved the characters. I loved some of the dungeons and raids. I'm super excited for what's coming next. It just hits some emotional beats that just, for me, hadn't been on the level that they were at in Endwalker. It was a complete story. It was a fun story. It was thrilling. And overall, again, I think it was excellent. So my score for the Endwalker expansion is going to be 9.8. I think it's the best one so far. I think the infrastructure problems are going to get solved in some time, and players who come into this expansion months or years down the line probably won't be facing those, and they'll just get to experience the expansion for what it's supposed to be, and what it is excellent. I really, really enjoyed it. You should definitely check it out. Do not miss this expansion. All right, guys, that's going to be it for my review of Endwalker. If you would please do me the favor of liking the video. It makes a huge difference for me if you like the video. Please subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications on future videos. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next review. Also, don't forget to catch me over at Twitch at twitch.tv/CyrusTheGreat99. I'll be leaving a link in the description below here. And come experience all that Endwalker is with me as we get ready for raids. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. Peace.